Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Clint Pulver and I am so excited to have the amazing guest. Heather Younger is in the studio today, her virtual studio. I'm in my studio and we are kicking off this podcast series. And Heather, I am so excited to be hanging with you this morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's beautiful, beautiful. I'm in Colorado. It's a snowy day, so I'm having fun.
Do you guys have a lot of snow right now? Is it melted some? Is it?
No, it's snowing actively right now. This is
Wow.
this is that time of year. I want snow. It makes me feel kind of vibrant and upbeat again. It's Christmas time, so
Yeah, I agree. If it's going to be cold, it might as well be beautiful cold, right? You might as well have snow, in my opinion. We're
exactly.
in Utah, so I'm not far from you, and yeah, I'm right there. I agree. You should at least have some snow. Heather, you and I hang out in kind of the same space, this world of employee loyalty and how to build organizations that people never want to leave. You are known as the employee whisperer. Tell us what that means. Where did that come from? A little bit of your background.
Okay, so the reason why I'm where I'm at right now is because some years ago, over the years, I've actually been managing people for a long, long time. And some years ago, I went through a merger of some companies. And during the merger, I noticed that the culture was going downhill. No one was listening to employees. They really are the ones that are driving the business forward. And so what happened is I could see the trust breakdown, and from other teams would come to me and ask me what was happening and why weren't leaders communicating with them. And so I was starting to feel down myself through the merger. And so I went to the head of HR and I said, listen, we have got to do something about our engagement, about our lack of trust and the fear that's brewing underneath the surface. And she said, you know what, you're right. You should go do something about that. And I was like, huh? I was leading customer experience at the time, not HR. And I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I did it because I knew I'd already been kind of the culture bearer inside the organization, and people would come to me and they knew I would be there, be a good voice for them. And I'd like to uplift people. So I did it. And within quick order, people started to trust each other. We made them start to interact with each other. We did fun games and things to bring them together. And it was right in that period where I realized there was such a huge need for somebody to be the voice for the people, for the employees who drive the business forward, to the executive leaders who actually can do something about it, something to really to change the experience for those people who are moving the bus forward. So I just chose to be that. So within about a few months after we started that, so about 6 months after the council started, the merger didn't go all that well, and they did have to do a lot of layoffs. And I was in that first round. And even though it hurt at that point, I knew that I was called to do that work, to be the voice for those who didn't ordinarily have a voice, who felt a little hopeless and helpless, and be able to give that to those who could change it. So that's where I'm at today.
Amazing. And so since that point to where you are now, tell us a little bit about what you do for organizations. Your background and experience obviously has, you've been doing this for how many years, Heather?
Well, I mean, I've been in this field for now about 10 years and
Yeah.
been full time in my current role right now for about 3 years. So it's been a really interesting ride. I haven't looked back since I decided to go on my own. And what we focus on is we focus on helping organizations create listening cultures. And so we do that through helping them with employee engagement surveys, focus groups, employee resource groups, and affinity groups within the diversity inclusion space. We also help, obviously, I do executive coaching for leaders that really want to utilize me and my background. And then we do some training, and of course, I'm a speaker. So all of these things are
Yeah.
wrapped into one to really help organizations create better listening cultures.
And I think creating a better listening culture right now is so important. I mean, COVID-19 just disrupted so many different industries. There's obviously been some businesses that have thrived during this time, and then there's been businesses that are barely hanging on. What have you seen right now during this time that great leaders or great organizations have been doing to create a better listening culture? Because I think there's some listeners and people that have businesses, right? They have employees, and they're looking for ideas. How do we do that better? How do I obviously still maintain a business and function with profitability and productivity, marketing, but also how do I take care of my people? Because yes, they drive the business forward. So what have you seen, and what would maybe be a few recommendations on how leaders can do that better right now?
Well, it's interesting because going back to why listening cultures, why is that the focus? It is because when we think about the people who are in the front line, on the front line with our customers, the ones who know the most about the business, we need to be listening to them. They're the ones who know our customers best. Our customers are the ones that pay our bills. So when we're talking about profitability, if we aren't listening to the people who are closest to where the profit comes from, we are going to really see ourselves in a heap of trouble, right? So
Agreed.
we want
Yeah.
to make sure that we're listening first. And when we're listening at all levels of the organization, from the front line all the way up, we're able to then aggregate those voices in a way that speaks to us, helps us with strategy, it actually helps us with productivity. Because if people feel like their voices are heard, like they do matter, and that their voices are powerful, they're going to go over and above and do more for the team and the organization. So that's really the thing that we want to focus on, creating that listening space. And I say create a listening culture because, for example, a lot of organizations will listen via a survey. They may do a pulse survey, an annual
Yes.
survey,
Yes.
but they don't do anything about it. Or if they do something about it, they never connect the dots back to the people who used their voices to, and then the action that they're deciding to take. So it's
Yes.
connecting the two, and organizations that do that very well are the ones that are going to really prosper in this type of environment.
So how would you recommend that they do that? We have the
Well, I
idea of
think in the
listening.
end,
Yeah.
you have to have a plan. You don't go into a survey or into focus groups or into affinity groups with just like, let's go let people talk.
Yes.
You have to know the why behind it. You have to know how it's going to happen and what you're going to do with it. So having a plan to start with is most important because I've seen organizations way too much go in and they do 1, 2, 3 like tactical things, but they don't have the idea from a big picture of where they're going with it and what the end goal is. So, I mean, listening first could be a manager on a one-on-one, right? It could be when they're just doing, performance reviews. It could be a one-on-one session where they're just meeting with their people weekly, which should be a regular cadence for managers. It
Yes.
could be from an organizational view, it could be the surveys or focus groups or culture teams. And what they're doing is they're listening and they're making sure that they're corralling all of what they're hearing and starting to look for big themes. What are the things that our people really need and want from us in order to have a better experience inside the workplace? And when they have that better experience, what is going to make them go the extra mile? What's going to make them be so enthused that they're going to sell products harder, right? They're going to be better when it comes to the customer interaction. They're going to be better when it comes to their coworker interactions. So all of those things come to the forefront, but we have to start with listening first in all of these other ways around the organization.
Yeah. What would you say, Heather, to a busy CEO or an overstressed manager who, they click in their emails, they open up their inbox every day, they've got a to-do list that is this long, they've got so many other things weighing on their mind, other things that are pulling their attention, and they might be listening to this going, okay, I get it, listening is important, but I don't have time. I am so busy, and you expect me to meet individually and to have a listening session. What would you say to somebody that's in that situation that's just busy? And sometimes it's easy to forget about people. It still matters, but what would you maybe advocate for on how to do that better?
Well, I mean, I would say number one, I've been there. Again, I've managed people my majority of my life, and I know exactly what it means to move them down the totem pole and put projects and processes in at the forefront. So
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yes.
But what I can say to you is this: putting together, making sure that you have a cadence, something that's scheduled on your calendar with each of your direct reports. It doesn't have to be every week if you can't get there. Every 2 weeks. I mean, try to have some cadence. Start small. If you need to do once a month, you're not meeting with them at all once a month. You're doing more of a team meeting. So start with the baby steps and then go from there. I did have a cadence of trying to meet once a week with each of my direct reports to make sure that I could find out what barriers I could remove from them for them. And so here's the thing: you can't really afford not to listen. Really
Yes.
can't afford not to take that time and have that time with your people, because you have all these other things that are up there. But guess what? You have to delegate, you have to empower, and you can't do that if you're not meeting with people and figuring out what it is you can do to remove barriers and to, plow through things and help give them access to things that they need. So that's what I would say to them.
Yeah, it's a crucial thing. And I think sometimes with COVID right now, a lot of employees or even employers kind of look at, well, there's not very many options. And everybody's just trying to survive. So put your head down, go to work, and just be glad you have a job. But I think that what we've seen too is that great leaders that have learned to listen better that have picked up the phone and actually called, have scheduled time to connect with their employees, it always increases productivity. It always empowers people. It always, in the long run, will just create better results. And that little investment of time really goes a long way.
Mm. Yes. I want to say amen right now.
I wanted to ask Heather, what would you say when we talk about listening, uh, the best type of listening? Is there a specific way that you have seen is maybe better? Is it a survey? Is it a one-on-one? What would be your advice on how to listen better and where to start that would get the best results?
Well, I mean, I think in the end, the organization should have a listening strategy. So that's going to be multi-level. It is going to be above organization at kind of a survey level, drilling down to themes and looking at, focus groups or different culture teams. But at some point, a lot of this has to do with what the manager and the employee relationship, the two people, the one that's looking to you for guidance and the one you're looking to get things done. So
Yes.
that has to get done. It has to be a priority. But if the organization loosens up some space for those type of organic conversations to happen, that's where things are going to get rich. And then above organization, you do it too. So the strategy should really be multi-tier. It should start top to bottom, but in the end, you have to make sure that that manager, the leader, and the team member are interacting and give them things to talk about. What can I talk about to my team member? I mean, I'm meeting with every week. Okay, so I know I get to projects and processes, but how about how are you doing?
Yes.
How are you feeling during this time? How are you and your family handling what is happening right now?
So
Those
good.
type of conversations, I tell you, they will give you so much more. They will pay so much larger dividends if you are focusing on the caring side of the leadership right now at the organizational level with listening and being very responsive, and at the leader level with your team member when they're sitting right in front of you, and they may not tell you what's happening, but it's really come upon you to dive deeper and not be afraid, be a little vulnerable yourself. All of those things I think really help to create more effective listening overall.
I think it's interesting in leadership, a lot of the times you see leaders that focus so much on the tangibles, right? The profit, the growth, the strategy. How do we move the needle? But it's really the intangibles that matter to the employees. They don't remember how effectively you ran a meeting or how well your strategy is to grow quota to 10% growth. Or, they don't talk about that. They talk about the moments. They talk about the intangibles, how you make them feel. And I think now more than ever, in the time that we're living in, we need that. We need good leaders to practice that.
Mm, yes, absolutely. It really is about emotions. And we as leaders get to choose which emotions we unleash within the people we lead. We get to choose
Absolutely.
that. We choose it in our interactions, how we engage with them, whether we do engage or we don't engage, right? Whether we choose to kind of show up fully and in a vulnerable way, in an authentic way, or we choose not to. And like you said, to focus on the numbers, the processes, and projects. Now, having said that, again, I have managed people and I know that there's pressure to have the projects get completed, to make sure we institute processes. In fact, I think process is a huge way to produce more positive emotions at an organizational level in all of the employees inside the organization. And so when I say that, it is there are things in the background that we can do that can kind of scale the experience in a way that maybe we didn't think we could before. And so that would be like, if we're doing this survey and we're listening, what is the plan to communicate back to employees about what you're doing? If you know that the morale is low, what can you do above organization to create more recognition programs or processes for recognition or touch points for recognition that can uplift and enthuse your people? So those are processes that we need to focus on, but it's the emotional side of things that really should be our priority. So I'm 100% with you there, Clint.
Have there been specific ways that you have seen that companies have recognized their people during COVID-19? Has there been anything specific or any ideas that you would give to leaders that could maybe use some help on how to recognize their employees more?
Here's one thing that I've said recently. I've said it a lot, but recently it's been a big priority, and that is there's nothing more powerful than the written word.
Mm.
And right now, everybody's like so zoomed out. We're email, Zoom, text messaging, so much digital, right? Why not get back to the basics? Writing from the leadership team or the manager,
Yes.
handwritten thank you notes. with specific things that maybe refer directly back to your organization's values, mission, norms, something that they did that really points back to that thing. So it keeps it focused on the organization, but at the same time, it gets down to the person. And what did they specifically do?
Yes.
Handwriting it. Oh my goodness, a novel concept. It comes in the mailbox. They
Yes.
get it. What a surprise. Right? So
Yeah.
this is just going again, getting back to basics, I think is the biggest thing. Picking up the phone as you talked about. Maybe it's not Zoom, maybe it's not text, but just picking up the phone and saying on that group call that we had, I noticed that your energy was a
Yes.
little bit down. I
Yes.
just wanted to reach out to you. I just wanted to see how, how you're doing. Is there anything I can do for you?
Yep.
And that those are just the kind of conversations. It is the soft stuff. That is
It
the
is.
hardest stuff to do, but we
Yes.
have to do it.
You're spot on. It is the soft stuff that is the hardest stuff to do, but it is what gets remembered. It's what employees talk about. I still remember, Heather, when I was working in corporate America, I was in sales, and I'd get a monthly, quarterly projection of where I was at, what I was doing, how the business was going. And I can't tell you a thing, I can't remember anything from that. But I do remember at the top of every quarterly projection sheet, my manager would write a note and just praise me. And he talked about, dude, you're killing it. You're
Mm.
doing so great. I love how you're doing this. You're working so great with all the rest of the team. I just appreciate you. If there's anything you need, reach out. I still remember that. I remember his handwriting. I remember what that meant. Every time when I got that quarterly projection sheet, I was excited to read it. I was excited to look, and it just was a little thing that really made a big difference.
It's huge. Yeah, it really is. People, it drives me nuts when we actually call things soft skills,
I know.
because it is so hard, right? I think it's much easier to look at a spreadsheet and judge whether that's right or wrong, but it's
Yes.
so much harder to look through the soul of a person, right?
Yes. Agreed.
To allow them to authentically show up as they were put on this earth to do. Like those are the kind of things that just you can't put a price tag on. You can't put it. That is loyalty.
Yes.
Loyalty comes from uh, allowing people to show up as their fullest selves, even if it doesn't completely align with you. Okay. But that you're there to support them for who they are. And for
Yes.
you to actually show up, not as some like perfect person with some bat cape on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But to show up and say, you know what, this has been a tough day, but let's work together and see how we can get through this. They have
Yes.
to see that you are resilient, right? And then that helps them become resilient too.
Yep. I agree. Would you say, I mean, during this crazy time with COVID, you've worked with a lot of different organizations during this time. Uh, I think sometimes leaders forget, or sometimes they don't even know that there is a problem. From your perspective in the organizations that you've worked with, Heather, during COVID-19, during this time, have you seen an overarching theme from an employee's perspective? Anything that the employees are hoping for, wanting? Can we give some insight to a leader that's listening right now from your expertise that this is what you've seen that employees have needed and craved the most from their leadership during this time?
Yes. I think the biggest thing right now, the entire world is really sick of the unknown, right? They're fearful of the unknown, and employees are no different. And so, what a leader can do right now is to help as much as possible within their sphere of control get rid of the unknown
Mm-hmm.
inside of that small circle. And so, what I mean by that is if you are aware of things that are happening in the organization, or you know that you want to move in a direction with the team, don't hide that from your people. They are adults. They want the truth as much as you can give it to them. So
Yes.
being really upfront, involving them in the decision-making process, empowering them during this time to again control what they can control. That way, if you can feel like you have more influence and control in your little sphere, it makes you feel less out of control, right?
Yes.
And then the anxiety can go down and the stress can go down. And so I would say that'd be the number one thing that employees are looking for right now is for their leaders to help them get rid of some of the unknown that exists inside the workplace where they are able, and that they can own their small little space right now. That's going to reduce their stress and their anxiety.
So as we close, Heather, what would be maybe one action item if there's one thing that you could get leadership in today's world to do to apply that to help decrease the uncertainty, to help them listen more? one action item that whoever's listening, they can walk away and say, all right, I'm going to give this a shot today with my employees. I'm going to try that. What's one thing that you would propose?
Okay, this is going to sound earth shattering. It's going to just rock your world. Reach
I'm
out to
ready.
them and talk to them.
Reach out and talk to them.
Talk to them. You know, don't run. What happens, it's easy for us to do right now during this crazy time of change is for us to bury our head in the sand. Or for us to kind of ignore the fact that there's a lot of stress and anxiety, that there
Yes.
are increases in mental health issues, right? That are going on inside our own teams.
Yes.
Right now, today, commit to reaching out to each one of your people and just checking with them. I just wanted to see how you're doing. How are you dealing with everything that's here? What can I do for you? And just listen.
Awesome.
Listen.
I'm gonna
Listen.
I'm gonna say it for you, Heather. Amen. 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 Heather, this has been incredible. Your insight, your expertise is priceless. It's valuable, and it is so needed right now, more than ever. If any leader or anybody that's listening to this, if they want to connect with you, bring you into their organization to speak, to train, to help to create a culture of listening, where can they find you?
Well, I mean, you can find me at heatheryounger.com. You can also find me through cmispeakers.com. So you can go there and find me there. I am on LinkedIn pretty actively. And so if you want to get a little bit more of me and kind of the content, that's probably the biggest platform I'm on right now. So I would say just find me, Heather Younger, on LinkedIn.
Okay, sounds amazing. Heather, you're incredible. Thank you for taking the time to enlighten us, share your expertise, and we look forward to good things to come. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Clint.